you find somebody online, you kind of do a little bit of research about them, then you do that free webinar and you're like, oh, there's a bit of skepticism there. Of course there is. So you've kind of got to take that leap of faith. So I did. And then it was like, I'm built for this. Now we are three-ish years later, 4 businesses, 6 million turnover.
So Peter, you came on Mastermind in 2020. You bought 4 businesses totaling 6 million of annual revenue. Tell me, you must have a huge amount of business experience in your background. Where did you start?
So I come from the tools. I was an electrical engineer by trade. And then me and my business partner, both engineers. Our first acquisition catapulted us into the business world.
So you're saying that prior to that first deal,
Yep.
you hadn't actually had any business experience at all.
That's correct.
But you'd worked in the sector.
Yes.
So you understood it. Okay. Now, it's quite a journey from employee to 6 million of annual revenue. That's quite an exciting number. 4 deals along the way. You started off in Mastermind. You're now in the Inner Circle group, have been for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So tell me, what started off this entrepreneurial journey? At what point did you think, I don't want to work for someone else, I want to do my own thing?
I think it's always been in there. So I'd always had the intention of working for myself, but I'd always thought it would be in the subcontracting world. So I'd end up being a subcontract in some sort of engineering discipline. But my business partner, Jonathan, he was at the same place since 2007. We met in 2009. Went through college and uni together, become friends through that. All college and uni was part-time, so we were still working full-time employment while studying. Where Jonathan was, his the previous owner, mentor, boss, all of that, got to retirement point. So the opportunity come up to acquire the first business, NDT Electronics, where Jonathan, my business partner, was the natural succession, the only succession really. But he's fantastic technically, great technically. And as we'd got to know each other over a long period of time, although we were both engineers, Jonathan had stuck with the technical side of it. And I was more naturally driven or drawn towards the business side of it. So when this came up, we had actually had a third party investor who was going to put the money in and we were going to run the business. This went on for far too long, done all of the things you teach us not to do.
Okay. I hear that a lot.
Yeah. Jonathan was still working with the previous owner. So tensions were starting to go there because the previous owner was going to exit. There was going to be a new guy come in. So it got to the point where tensions were too high for there. I was getting frustrated because I was still working. I was still on the tools.
So you're trying to put, so what was the deal that was happening then? So there was an investor who was going to put up the money, and then you and Jonathan were going to run the business.
Yes.
But so were you going to have any ownership in the business?
Yes. So we were going to have a small stake in it.
Okay.
I think it was going to be 30% between us.
Okay. So 15% each and 70% to the investor.
Yes.
But this was taking a long time to make happen?
Yeah. So it was just the time factor. It was dragging on and on and on. Then it got to the point where there must be something we can do. So went away, researched how to do it, found yourself, done, right. I think it was like an introductory webinar, and then signed up to the fast track after that, and then the mastermind after that. So that was the October. By the June, we had it bought.
And you'd bought it without the investor.
Correct.
So now you own between you 100% rather than 30%.
That's it.
All right. So yeah, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that was a pretty good investment in Mastermind to get to the point of you're not a minority, you now are majority shareholders.
Yes, that's absolutely it. So during that whole process of going through the fast track, the mastermind, learning it, we then I packaged the deal, raised the finance, got the deal over the line. But during that whole process, we were just focused on, let's just get this business. But during that whole process, it was, actually, there's more to be had here. Between the mastermind, packaging the deal and getting it done, I'd actually sent out a couple of 100 letters. So we'd end up with interest in the second business, which then completed the following April, in April 22.
So in fact, you'd made up your minds this wasn't going to be one acquisition, you got a taste for it.
Got a
Now,
taste.
interestingly though, did you have that feeling right back at the beginning when you were talking to the investor? Did you think there were going to be multiple acquisitions, or were you just going to be the people operating that single business?
Before your course, that didn't even enter
Interesting.
the mind. It was just, this is a great opportunity, get into the business world, always wanted to work for myself. We'll have our own little thing, kind of in control of your own destiny. And then it all kind of opened up from there.
So not only did you end up with a far better deal, your ambition was ignited.
Was fed. now it's hungry. I know you've got to, when you find somebody online, you kind of do a little bit of research about them, then you do that free webinar and you're like, oh, there's a bit of skepticism there. Of course there is.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people out there. There's plenty of horror stories out there. So you've kind of got to take that leap of faith. So I did. And then the fast track. And I was like, oh, this is so me. Done that, done the mastermind. And then it was like, I'm built for this. And then now we are three-ish years later, 4 businesses, 6 million turnover.
Amazing. It's such a great story, because you made a decision, you took action, you just went for it, and you didn't talk yourself out of it. You just made it happen, which is so good.
Yeah. So it's been an incredible journey. Tough, hard, but
Sure.
Why wouldn't it be?
It requires effort and work. I mean, you don't get to where you've got to without effort and work. And I think if anyone thinks there's no effort and there's no work,
Killing
then
ourselves.
It's delusional, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's wonderful. And you are a regular at our Inner Circle group meetings.
Yeah.
So you're spending time with people who've done similar to you.
Yeah.
Different sectors, different fields, different things.
It's been great to mix with. Everybody's doing this. I say the same thing. Everybody's wanting to build a business through acquisition. But one of the big values I've got from being part of the group is just realizing that you build up this stereotypical image of a person who buys businesses. But when you go and meet the people who are doing it, you're just like, just the same as me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just kind of anybody can do it. Any background, any sector, anybody.
Yeah, I don't think there's any MBAs in the room.
No,
no one with any sort of illustrious business experience spanning decades.
No,
it's just motivated people, isn't it?
People who want to do it.
Yeah,
are doing it, and the MBAs. Every now and then I get kind of, should I do an MBA? Should I go and do it? And then I talk myself out of it, because it's my mindset, the way I go about things. It's different and it's unique, and it requires that creativity. And was worried the right word, that if I go and do an MBA, you're suddenly pigeonholed into, this is how business should be done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It might dampen the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes.
Yeah. Because you've done pretty well so far. So you're doing something right, aren't you? And how do you split the business in terms of running it and operations between you and your partner? Is there an obvious split, or do the roles merge?
There is a merge, but the split is, Jonathan looks after the technical side, so the actual delivery of the engineering and the manufacturing is what Jonathan concentrates on. So he's spent 16, 17 years specializing in that particular niche. So he's actually one of the country's leading experts on it now. So he loves that. He's coming up to the end of his PhD. So that's absolutely his. And then the business side of stuff. So the vision, the strategy, the growth, that falls with me. And then there's a natural crossover with operations. But for myself, the sales, the marketing, the strategy, all of that side, love it. I can switch to the other side. I can do the technical side, the design, the delivery. The bit in the middle, operations, that's where we both kind of fall down. So that's where we went and got somebody who specializes in operations.
Excellent. So you found someone who filled the gap in your skill set.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, before I forget, there's something I was very impressed with at the last Inner Circle meeting, is where you discovered that a business that you would have an interest in had been purchased by a private equity firm.
Yes.
And you called up the private equity firm and said, I'll buy that from you.
Yeah.
Now, could you imagine yourself doing that 3 or 4 years ago? I mean, that takes some courage and some confidence and some belief in who you are
Yeah.
and what you are doing.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Because
Yeah.
that's a
was
big step.
interesting. Yeah. So obviously, as it turns out, all of the businesses so far have been retirement sales just by that. That's the way they have been. So contacting the PE firm was quite interesting.
Yes. And I know them, and they're very entrepreneurial, and
Yeah.
you never know what might happen there. But so let's go back to the first deal. Now, you know that I'm an advocate of you don't put any of your own money into the deal. And I do know, because we've known each other for a while, that on that first deal, you did actually put some money in
Yes.
to get the deal over the line. And was that sourced from your savings or?
Yeah. So the bit of money I put in was actually my wedding fund. So we completed the deal in June. Then I was getting married in the following May. I says to my business partner, if I don't get a good chunk of this back by April, I don't need it at all. So thankfully, I was able to take some money out.
It was a high-risk strategy that you...
it was high risk, okay.
Yeah.
But we were that confident in it. We were that confident in our own ability.
Yes.
And because we knew the business, we knew the sector, I had Jonathan, it was quite low risk.
You were backing yourselves, weren't you?
Yeah, once you knew the detail, it was quite low risk. But from an outside perspective, it may be seen.
And you got the money back out, presumably before your wedding date.
Yes, and lovely wedding, all great. Yeah. So I mean,
so it turned out okay.
The more I think about this, the more crazy it kind of was, because we'd completed on the second business in the April, then I got married in the May.
Right.
So it was just
Wow.
It was just all happening one after the other.
So with the second deal, second, third, and fourth, did you need to put any of your own money into those?
We didn't have to put any more money in.
Okay.
We were able just to use finance within the group and then leverage the businesses we were buying.
Great. Okay. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So tell us some of the things that happened along the way with the acquisitions and the negotiation of the deals. Did you go and do the negotiations?
So not much for the first one, because the talks were quite advanced, although they were taking a while. They were quite advanced. And then Jonathan was in there and living it. So there was a bit of an element of good cop, bad cop going on. So that one had already run its course. The second one, I handled all of that negotiation with my business partner support. So I would take it back to him, or I've got to consult with Jonathan. I've got to talk to him about it.
Which actually is a really useful tactic.
It was really
Deferring
useful.
to another decision maker is always very good.
And there was truth in it. But yes, that's how that went on. And then the third one was actually technically a competitor of the first one.
Okay.
And they had contacted us. So they were looking to exit. They'd seen what we were doing. And obviously they knew the business because it was a competitor. And then they wanted out. So they'd contacted us.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. So actually consolidating competitors gives you a stronger market position, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It catapulted the first business forward. It was a bit distressed. So there was a lot of stuff we had to sort out. But them two coupled together has just strengthened the market and the market position for them businesses.
And I know that I introduced you in a sort of in the very sort of broad context of what you do, but this is actually more specialized. Just tell everyone what the specialized area is.
So it's industrial radiography. So NDT Electronics, which was the first one, specializes in X-ray, and then the third one specializes in gamma, and they're the two streams of industrial radiography. Then putting the two together, it's X-ray and gamma. And then the competitor you mentioned about the PE firm, they specialize in gamma. So when we got the competitor, which was local to us geographically, putting them two together kind of meant, oh well, it's too late now for the third one, which was geographically out of region.
Got it. Okay. So with the negotiations, how did you approach price? So placing the first one aside, because that was the deal had been negotiated by the other party.
Yeah.
With numbers 2, 3, and 4, how did you arrive at the price? How did you reach a value for the business?
The second one, it actually turned out just to be net book value.
Okay.
So that was pretty
And
straightforward.
so that was the one that was slightly distressed.
No, that was the second one, which completed in the April. The other one was a pound deal. So that was the distressed one. And then the third one was based on a multiple.
Okay.
The fourth one.
And how did you reach that number? That's what I'm interested in finding out. What was the methodology? How did it go? You know, was there an accountant involved?
So
quite often there is.
So for the fourth one, we've partnered up or started using a corporate finance team. So as we were getting more serious, we wanted to get the right advice, be with the right advisors, have that credibility. So they were able to provide actually quite a good deal structure for that. But we based it on a multiple, and the multiple was from knowing the industry and what we would be comfortable paying. So knowing what we would have to do to the business, what it would be required to bring it into group, and then moving forward, that's how we based it, based on the multiple.
Got it. Now, let's just go back a step there, because I remember this conversation from the Inner Circle group just a couple of months ago. And you were saying that you've now got a partnership with a corporate finance firm that does all of your fundraising for acquisitions.
Yeah.
And I believe does the cash flows and all of everything required to raise that money.
Yes. Yeah. So we haven't gone to a fundraise yet, but we've actually just this week got the final draft of the financial model. So your cash flow forecasts and everything like that to support a fundraise.
Again, I would say that this is quite an advanced step from where you were in 2020.
Yeah. Just a bit.
just the way you're talking, and just your nonchalant attitude around this. So, well, we're doing this fundraise, and we've got the cash flows sorted. So this is a real next level up of professionalism, isn't it? So what is this relationship with the corporate finance? What is this? Understanding the numbers at a very deep level. What is this going to do to help you on your acquisition journey?
Knowing your numbers, I suppose, for the businesses you've got, and then using that to do a fundraise for further growth, for further acquisitions, and having that back and that advice, that support from a professional, experienced CF team makes you more credible, makes you more reputable, and it'll help you do bigger deals better. If you get involved with a PE firm or venture capitalists or something like that, you're going to need somebody who can either speak their language or isn't dazzled too easily by.
Yeah, and it's hard to imagine someone internal being that person unless you thought ahead and said, we need someone at that level.
Yeah.
And usually you don't have someone internally who is going to be able to present in the correct way to either a larger funder or even to an acquirer.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we've done 4 deals in 3 years, which is great for us, and probably more than a lot of people do in a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
But to the corporate finance team, maybe he's doing 3 or 4 a month. So they're constantly on
absolutely.
it. That's what they live and breathe.
And they've got their ears to the ground as to
they know what's going on,
what's happening, which lenders are keen to lend.
Yes.
Because they don't make money unless they lend. So we've got an incredible path here over the last few years. But where's it taking you? What is the direction of travel now?
So the next few steps for us is consolidate and absolutely make sure the foundations are solid before we move forward. So just as it turned out, 3 of the businesses are quite geographically close. So there's sort of 20-ish miles between them. We're looking to move 2 of them into one premises. Then that will become the group headquarters as well. And then from there, once we've done the move, got that all stabilized, got that settled, the people are settled, happy, operations are settled, everybody kind of knows what they're doing, they're in the right role, the right people, all of that. And then we can go back at the acquisitions, because the worst thing we can do is bring in another business and then that's the straw that does the camel's back. It's great acquisitions, and there's it pains us because there's so much opportunity out there, and you see it all of the time, and you're like, oh, it would be great if. But if you get the shiny syndrome,
yes,
you can destroy all of it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
you've really got to have your kind of sensible head on and stay a bit grounded as much as possible, which is difficult for me because I want the growth. I want to get at it.
And you see the opportunity.
And the opportunity's there, and it's for the taking. And there's so much good we can do as a business. Like, the vision is to champion and support British manufacturing, and I really do believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just going on the acquisition trail for a laugh. Like, passion's a bit overused, but I do believe in it.
Yes.
So all of this that we're doing is championing and supporting British manufacturing, and I want to do it right, and I want to do it for the long term. So just rushing into stuff without the foundations being right.
You don't undo the work that you put in so far.
No, we've had a good, tough 3 years, learning everything, learning the basics, building up from there, building the right relationships, ready for that long term, getting the right advisors on board, ready to go at it sort of next year.
Yeah, very good. Very good. So you said about locating into like a head office type building. Have you considered buying that building?
We definitely did consider that, but the location we were looking at and the timing and the facility we needed, it just didn't come together for timing wise.
Okay, we'll talk about this offline because I've got some ideas that might be helpful to you. So going through a period of consolidation, I think, is a really smart move. And what I'd like to do is get you back for a second podcast interview where we talk about what happens after you buy the business. So if you're watching this one, look out for part 2 on the channel. And in part 2, we'll talk about what happens after you bought the business. How did you meet the staff? How did you speak to suppliers, to the customers, and how you managed the integration of the cultures when you're putting 4 businesses together, because that's always the hardest part. The people part is always the hardest part. And before we started filming, we were talking about the people being the asset, the liability, the opportunity, but the headache, all
at once,
all rolled up at the same time. Yeah,
I mean, the people are great, and it's important that you get it right. Yeah,
absolutely. And you know, you don't always get it right, or you inherit people that maybe don't fit in with the new business. So it's that's where the hard work really is. But we'll talk about that on a separate episode. What I'd like to talk about now is some of the things you've learned from doing these acquisitions, because people watching us on YouTube or listening to the Business Buying Strategies podcast will be probably considering, do I join Mastermind? Do I buy a business myself? So they want to inform themselves, just like you did before you came and joined me. So what would you say to people who are at the very early stages of looking at buying a business? What lessons did you learn that you could pass on to them?
You can read about it, you can talk to people as much as you want, but until you take some action, until you do some things, maybe it won't go as you kind of planned. Just thinking back to my first phone call with a with a potential seller. So letters went out, phone rang, say, now I've got to answer it. Picked up the phone, went into some sort of speech. I'll tell the story first, then I'll do my reflections. Went into some sort of speech about it, about myself and about what we're up to. And he went, how are you funding it? I was like, okay. It's going to be a combination of debt and capital going in. Depends on the deal structure. And he cut us off again. He says, how are you funding it? Well, I says, well, it depends on the deal structure, how we go about it. No. How are you funding it? Is it cash? No, nobody buys business with cash. It's like, nope, not interested. Thanks, bye. I was like, oh,
and I would imagine
that's an abrupt.
Was that an older seller?
I can't remember.
Because quite often older sellers have this very traditional, cash is king.
Give us me
that's
check.
That's the only thing that counts.
Yeah.
So what were your reflections on that then?
And it was either within days or within hours of the letters going out. So he was obviously very motivated to just have a conversation. The fact he'd rang up was something
in itself. Yes.
Yeah. So looking back, if I'd have just been able to meet him or go and see him, or maybe just have that conversation a bit better, he might have got his exit. He might still be working there now. He might still have his business because of.
Did you keep notes in all those calls?
I do have a few notes.
Because you can go back and say, look, I remember when we spoke, you were a little cynical, a little skeptical, but we've done 3 more acquisitions since then.
Yeah.
Do you think we should have a chat?
Yeah, absolutely, potentially.
Because you never know, right? Because really what people are wanting to know is, are you able to execute? Yeah. Are you someone who can follow through on this?
Yes, yeah. So that bit of experience there, if I'd never sent the letters, if I'd never picked up that call or called him back, I would never have had that first one. So the anxiety, the dread and everything that builds up on to your first one, got it out the way with. I was like, well, how much worse can it get?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically get stuck in there.
Just do it. The phone calls, the conversations, if you've got some sort of script, I wouldn't recommend reading from the script because they can tell it a mile away. But if you've got some sort of structure to a conversation that you can have,
like a framework to follow
that you can have with people, that'll help you just hold the conversation with the potential seller, and then that'll get you started. And then you'll get so far with the first one, and then you'll get so far with the second one, and the third, and then you never know, your fourth one might be really motivated, and then take it from there.
So what's been the biggest benefit to you of our relationship over the last 4 years in Mastermind, then in Inner Circle? Yeah. What's been the, if you were able to put your finger on one thing, what's been the biggest benefit?
It's the Mastermind. It's having people who are wanting to do the same thing, same ambitions, same mindset together. So the WhatsApp group is really helpful. That's great. And then meeting up collectively. You never know what the conversation's going to be like. You never know what, I was just about to say, you never know what problems people are having. But as it turns out, when you go, either the big problem you thought you had isn't actually that big, or everybody's having the same problem.
Yes. And collectively, you can come up with a whole bunch of solutions. Yeah. And one of those solutions might be the right one for you. Yeah.
So for the past 3-4 years, as I've been coming along, I've been taking a lot, I've been getting a lot, but now my experience is building. I'm starting to do different things. I can start kind of giving back now.
I've noticed that.
It's giving back to the group. So
I've noticed that.
Conversations experience, when you go with a problem, you'd flag it, somebody would laugh, easy peasy, and they'd offer you a solution. You'd be like, well, yeah, it's obvious. Of course it is. Then you go away, you implement it, happy days. But now I've kind of been around long enough, I'm seeing the other side of that. So people are coming up like, I've done this before.
You're no longer the beginner, are you?
Yes.
Yeah, at the beginning you feel like a beginner, but then later...
Until you get started, you're always a beginner.
Yes, absolutely. Are you a business owner and you want to grow via acquisition? Then you need to be part of my Mastermind program, where we hold your hand all the way through the entire process to make sure that your first acquisition is a resounding success. I put some information in the video description below. Now we're going to talk about what happened after you bought the businesses.
The exciting bit.
The exciting bit, yes, that's where the work really starts. So what has been the biggest challenge post-acquisition?
Yeah, so on the build-up to the acquisition, you're dealing with the owner, the seller, and you're very much commercial, legal, financial, very high-level discussions going on. And you enter through your due diligence stage and you do as much as you can without kind of ruining the business. And that's great. And then you get past that, you get the keys to the business, if you like. So the people make the business and you've got to look after them. So you've got to treat them right with respect to the business continuing, the business continuity, making sure you communicate with the team that you inherit. Again, you kind of just want to settle them post completion. They're like, oh, new owners, what's going to happen?
Because there's always
the
this
nervousness,
uncertainty. Is my job safe?
Yes.
That's what everyone's thinking.
Is the job safe? Is it still going to be here? How long have I got? Do I need to look for a new? All of them negative emotions very quickly set in. Human nature. So reassuring them that this is a good thing. Business is going to continue. We wouldn't have bought it if we wanted to close it down. We actually want this to succeed. Our success, your success, our success. for us, making sure that they're looked after. And we've been trying our best to create a culture where we are putting the people first, we are putting the employees first as absolutely best you can. And that is easier said than done because it's a business, there's challenges, but we're always trying to bring it back to the people. Are they supported?
Yeah.
Simple things from yearly reviews, frequent communication, all of them sort of basic HR stuff, which is easy to miss when you're worried about the rent is due, or is a supplier's chasing their payment, or a customer hasn't paid. It's easy to forget about that.
Despite all of those things, you still have to
look after
sit
your
down, talk, listen, all of those things. And actually, none of that, as you said, is particularly complicated. It's just sticking to some basics of treating people like you would expect to be treated yourself.
That's it. And coming from the tools, taking that quick succession from engineer, employee to owner, boss, manager, whatever, making that quick switch. I didn't forget that I was an employee. I remember how I would like to be treated. So you're able to pass on that. Say compassion. It's still work.
Well, it's an empathy. It's an understanding their position. And for people who haven't watched part one of this 2-part podcast, who haven't listened to it, Peter, just a few years ago, was the employee working in the business that he then went on to own the business and then went and bought 3 more businesses to create a group with 6 million of revenue. So in a very short space of time, as you said, you've gone from being the person on the tools to being the boss.
Yes. So knowing how I would like to be treated is how I want to create that environment for the team, for the employees. So the three directors, myself, business partner, and our ops director, are aiming for the culture where essentially people are knocking at the door to work. It's a place where people want to work.
Yeah.
Yes, it's hard work, but yes, it's rewarding. We've got good vision, good strategy, what we're trying to do. If you want to work here, it'll be rewarding, but it'll be challenging. And that's the environment we're trying to make.
Yeah, very good. Very good indeed. And have you integrated, you said the businesses are quite close together geographically, or 3 of them are.
Yeah.
So have you integrated the working practices? So is everyone on the same HR contract, employment contract, for example?
At this moment in time, no. That will be on the cards at some point in the future for a lot of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these businesses were all established. They've all been going 20, 30 odd years. And a lot of the staff have been there a long time, sort of 10, 15 years. When they got their contract, the laws changed 3 or 4 times since then.
So actually, because people's employment contracts are sacrosanct, and to change someone's contract is like that is a turmoil for them.
Yeah.
So in actual fact,
so if they've had that same,
keeping them as they are,
if they've had that,
if everything's
same contract,
working,
for 15 years, there's
no
really
point
top of
rocking
the
the boat, is there?
No.
So you've actually answered my next question, which was about branding. Clearly, if the business has been going that long,
yes,
you're buying the brand, the recognizable name, the reputation that goes with that, the goodwill that goes with it. So clearly you haven't changed that either.
No.
I think it's so much. That's definitely the right thing to do.
Yeah, we've just kind of added on part of the Fairly Gun Group. That
absolutely. So it's a
subtle association.
Yeah, subtle tying it together.
Yeah.
So we had a former mastermind come to the Inner Circle group. I don't actually think you were there that particular meeting, unfortunately, called Sam. And Sam's been on this podcast as well. And he bought, I believe, 4 HVAC businesses. And he'd previously worked for TUI, the travel people. So TUI had bought another business and he'd been told to go and do the integration and put the business together. He said it was such a nightmare. He would never, ever do that again. So he's kept his HVAC businesses operating completely separately. And as a result, he hasn't even attempted the integration because he doesn't want to go there. And it sounds to me like that's actually the same path that you're going down as well, although for different reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless there's a fantastic reason to integrate them, I cannot see us doing that.
Yeah,
Because, as you say, you're buying that brand, that entity, that recognition
absolutely.
within whatever
And
market
to
it's
destroy that and start again
Doesn't
wouldn't
make
make any
sense.
sense.
Doesn't
Yeah.
make
Do you remember
sense.
how they rebranded the post office years ago, and they've tried it and it doesn't work. They go
No.
back to the post office. So what about the back office functions? What about finance, for example?
So that's slowly been taking shape. So we've got a financial controller who kind of looks after all 4 businesses, as well as our operations director. She's got a strong financial background, so she's able to oversee that on a day-to-day basis. So that's slowly being consolidated into sort of 1 or 2 people overseeing everything. And that helps because of our financing arrangement with a consolidated facility. That means everybody knows what's drawn down, how much is available,
Yes.
and where.
Because I would imagine that your lenders want to see regular management accounts,
Yeah.
want to be informed of exactly how trading is going. So, do you have did the lending go into the topco, into the holding company, or into the trading?
They're actually into the trading businesses,
Okay.
but it's
Okay.
but because they're part of a group structure, we're able to have it aggregated.
Yes, and this is your refinance that you did.
Yes, we've done
Yeah.
that earlier this year.
Yeah, fantastic. Do they have security, presumably over the group?
Yes, so there's cross debentures, cross charges
Okay.
between everything.
So they've
They're fully secure.
they are holding on to that company very tightly, but no personal guarantees.
No personal guarantees.
Yeah, and that's
So
the
that was
important
a big
part.
motive when we first started. Personal guarantee,
Yeah.
unknown, everything like that, kind of to be expected. But once we'd proven ourselves,
And you have proven yourselves. This is the thing. You've bought 4
that
companies.
track record.
Absolutely. And I think that is something that you need to preserve. It's like your reputation, it's your business reputation, isn't it? That you can do this, you can accomplish this.
A lot of people can talk about it. A lot of people can spend months, years going through DD, but at some point you've got to do it.
Absolutely. I think that with due diligence, if you let your external due diligence company, quite often your accountant, just have free reign, they will never stop.
Yeah.
Because there'll always be another month of management accounts. There'll always be another set of annual accounts. And at some point, you've got to say, no, this cannot go on any longer.
Yeah.
We have to sign the deal.
Yeah.
We have to do the deal.
You just got to get yourself comfortable enough with whatever risk it is to
You say,
to
what
go ahead
is
with it.
what is the worst that can happen? And am I okay with that?
Yeah.
And if you've structured, as you well know, if you've structured the deal well, then you've got a bit of a buffer as well, because if something comes out post diligence that's been warranted, then you can have a right of offset against anything that you've retained.
Yes.
So you haven't given them all the money on day one. You held a bit back just in case they haven't been completely truthful.
Yeah. It keeps them motivated as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've talked about this in
You all want it to work.
Yeah,
They want to get out. They want the money. We want it to work, and we want a business that continues.
and creating that consistency of focus where everyone wants it to be successful is how it does become successful. If people are pulling in different directions, and sometimes you get sellers of more of smaller businesses where they actually have this sort of seller's remorse and they don't want you to be more successful than them. In fact, I was interviewing someone for this podcast earlier, and he was saying exactly that. He had the seller being negative to the customers.
Right.
So how did you approach telling the customers and the suppliers that the business had changed hands?
So an open and honest approach.
Mm-hmm.
And because we'd worked with the previous owners, we'd worked with the sellers, again, we all wanted it to work. So they were quite happy to do some sort of handover period. So when you approach the suppliers, you approach the customers, tell them about your background, what you're up to. Don't fear, we've still got the previous owner here. There's going to be a smooth handover. And then actually doing that smooth handover.
Yes.
And we took the approach, if people don't realize it's changed hands for 6 months, that's been a success for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. No.
So,
no.
What do you mean? You bought it 6 months ago?
Visible external changes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I was like, suppliers keep getting paid on time-ish. Customers are still serviced in the way they are by whoever they were dealing with within the business. Just keep all of that going. There's no point in coming in, move along, I'm the boss now, I'm going to talk to the customer. But that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And how did you deal with the first conversation with the staff, the first time you met them?
So again, because we all wanted this to work, they were open to us giving a talk pre-completion. I'd met the key staff, the management, earlier on in the process. Then they were involved, got the buy-in of them. They were motivated, they were excited for the change, the future, all of that. And then the rest of the team, it was kind of a mutual decision. Okay, now seems about right. We've gone far enough into DD. We've gone through a couple of revisions of the SPA. We're now at a position where, okay, it's highly unlikely to fall over at this point. Let's now have that conversation with the staff.
Yeah, good. So I mean, this is always the debate. Do you keep it confidential until you complete, and then it's a surprise, or as staff always describe it, as a shock? Never as a surprise, always a shock, which is more sort of negative than a surprise. Or do you discuss it prior to completion, which feels a more sort of democratic, fairer way of doing things, but it carries the risk of, if the deal doesn't complete, then the owner, the seller, has got egg on their faces, and it's all very embarrassing. And I suppose you have got the risk also of staff looking elsewhere for jobs. But it sounds like that didn't happen with you at all.
So for the third one, we did have that. We had quite a big walkout. Seems extreme. It was only a small business, only 8 or so people there. And we had a couple of key staff members leave who left a huge hole within the business. As it turns out, in hindsight, reflection, I think they were already checked out long before we come on the scene.
Sure. You were just the catalyst for that particular moment. They said, if Jeff's selling, well, we might as well go at the same time.
The change happened. Either they didn't like it, or it didn't go as they planned, or that was the catalyst, or that was their excuse.
Yeah.
Then they moved on, which left a huge hole for us to fill. I had to go out there. It turns out to be, dare I say, a bit of a blessing. So we went out and actually built the team up from scratch with people we wanted, people who aligned with us, aligned with our values, wanted to go where we were going. So now we've got that team, the business is better for it.
Interesting. So it's always interesting how, with hindsight, things are never as bad as they felt. At the time, it was probably head in your hands, what's going on here?
Yeah. When to tell the staff. I don't think there probably isn't a right time. You couldn't say do it at this point. But the approach we took was, when the SPA is at an agreeable state, there's very little to and fro going on. You've got the deal structure nailed down. You've got the initial consideration nailed down. That feels like a comfortable time. And then when you're having the discussion with the staff, it's like, this has actually been going on for a while. We're making sure it's right. We're making sure you don't really notice any change for the near future.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That reassurance.
Yes. And we talked in the previous episode about consolidation. So you're going through this period of consolidation now, making sure that everything is absolutely rock solid. So what does that look like? Does that involve recruiting new people?
We've been on an endless recruitment. So again, because the businesses were established, sort of 20, 30 years old, dare I say, the previous owners, it maybe's retired in the head 5 years prior to us coming along. So they're quite happy. They'd been doing it a long time. Money was coming in. Business was successful. No real pressure for business, no real desire to make it bigger, because they knew they were retiring. So we've come along, and there's a huge amount of organic growth just sitting there waiting.
So it was pent up. So I don't know if you remember Jason in the Inner Circle group with his manufacturing business.
Right.
The
fabrication, metal fabrication.
Yes, yeah. So the previous owner they stopped answering the phone to new customers.
Yeah, they were just, yeah.
So the fastest way to grow the business was answer the phone and take the orders.
Then, so you've took on this business and you think it's doing whatever it's doing. Then you're like, well, hold on. There's this, there's that, there's this. Then before you know it, you've actually grown quite organically.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, who's going to do all of the work? So then you go down the recruitment process, you add in the acquisitions, then that just sort of accelerates the growth, which is why we're going through this consolidation and the premises move to facilitate and actually realize some of that potential.
Okay, so have the additional capacity.
Yeah, to actually take on what we've already got. Never mind bringing in new stuff.
Good position to be in.
Yeah, it's
because
great.
quite often when you take over a business, there's an attrition of the staff and there's some attrition of customers. Yeah. Have you lost customers?
I couldn't sit here and say or identify anyone we've lost. But we have let customers go. We went through the accounts, kind of done a customer review. Actually, let's see what's going on here. We noticed one customer who was a fair size of turnover, but I don't know what had gone on with the previous owner. There was some very favourable discounts and terms, and they were just demanding a lot of resource from the staff. And as it turns out,
it's interesting. The people who pay the least want the most, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was, they were paying the least, they wanted the most resource, and we weren't making very much. And there was actually a probability that we were actually making a loss on this customer. It was just feeding cash. We think they were just feeding cash flow from it, just keeping it going. So we said to this customer, this kind of go on like this. Offered them, would love to still do business with you. You're a customer, valuable customer, have been for a long time, but we cannot support them discount values we've been getting. So we give them a new pricing structure. Business dropped off pretty much straight away, but that freed up all of the resource to go and get profitable work.
Oh, very good. Yeah. There are so many times that mates rates are being applied by the old owner.
Yeah.
And of course they expect those to continue with you, the new owner. Yeah. So if you eliminate those, there's no profit in those clients. And if you remove those clients, like you say, it frees up the resource, it allows you to go and get the profitable customers, and basically everyone wins. You win in every single angle. You've got a better client who's more profitable. And probably taking up less resource, because the people who want all the discounts are always the most demanding.
And then that's obviously tricky conversations to have. But as the owner, they're the conversations you need to start having.
Yes.
You need to start identifying them. And then it's balancing that with the people element. The people may have been dealing with this customer for a long time. Then they may be feeling uncomfortable. Oh, is that how we're going to treat them now? They've traded with them for 10 years and now you're treating them like that. So you need to go through the cycle of, yes, but this is for the benefit of everybody.
Have you had to let anyone go in terms of, were there redundancies when you bought any of the businesses?
No redundancies. People left, which I've just spoke about, and then there was some that never worked out, which you've got to go through that. But no redundancies. And when we're going through this consolidation, no redundancies. We're actually taking people on.
Oh, very good.
Consolidation will be around systems, processes, and physical resource, not so much people resource.
Do you feel that you're a different person to the person you were 4 years ago?
I feel like I've grown into the person I was meant to be, rather than different.
Great answer. That's really insightful. And so I've got no idea how old you are. Would you be willing to share?
34.
34.
Just turned 34.
So you started this journey in your 20s?
30. I was
just turned 30.
30, yeah.
Okay.
I was creeping up on 31 when we got the first one.
Okay. An old age of 31. So when you said you feel now you've become the person that you were meant to be, was there during your 20s then this desire for more?
Yeah. Maybe I didn't know what it was. I thought I wanted to work for myself, have that sort of control over what I do, go the subcontracting way, go the engineering contracting way, that kind of thing. I knew there was something there, and there was always this agitation that I could do more, I could be more. I was a pretty good engineer back back when I was on the tools. But I knew I could do more. And then finding this, I'm not into property, and I'd kind of toyed with going into property because that everybody's doing it, or there must be something in it. But I'd never took that leap of faith with the courses and stuff like that. But when I'd found your course, something resonated and twigged, and I was like, yeah, I'll take that leap with this, and it's worked out.
What I'd very much like to do is invite you to come and speak to our Mastermind 2025 people next year and come and share your story. I'm sure with some updates, maybe even another acquisition at that point, and share your story with them, because I think that people don't necessarily appreciate this isn't just about buying a business. This is about the person you evolve to be while you're buying the business. Because I imagine the conversation we're having now, we wouldn't have had 4 years ago. I mean, this is a completely different type of conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole process feels natural, and it's been hard. It's been hard work, continues to be hard work. But there's something within us that's still ignited. There's still this burning sort of passion, and being able to continue British manufacturing and engineering, especially from Newcastle, the region. There's a huge engineering presence at one point. Over the years, that slowly kind of dwindled. And now I'm getting involved with local communities, local networking groups, all around engineering and manufacturing. It's great to be part of that buzz. And actually, a lot of businesses formed out of redundancies, or the shipyards closing, or the coal mines closing, and somebody could do a thing, that could weld, or they could do whatever. So they were like, oh, okay, do some welding, pays the bills. They were quite good, so they got more work. And before they know it, they've got a couple of £1 million business with like 10 people.
Right.
Then they get to retirement age, and well, now what do I do? Which is actually what we're seeing a lot now, which is all of the opportunity.
And have your friends and family seen a difference in you?
Less. I've seen less.
Oh, they've seen less of you. Okay. Okay. So when they do see you, do you feel they see a different Peter?
Yes, I would definitely say so. I've never actually asked them, but they've probably always known I could do more or better or what have you. I was quite a high achiever in school, and high achiever throughout all of the academic life, and pretty good employee when I look back. So I always knew, and they probably always knew, you'll do all right.
Yeah. Oh, you've got a great future ahead. Peter, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks.
Very interesting, very insightful. Leave your comments below the video and tell us what you thought of Peter's story. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks.